Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. Today will be the first video in a series diving into how to apply as a non-resident big game hunter in the most prominent Western big game states, to the best of my knowledge. As always, be sure to do your own research. I'm going to have a separate video for Wyoming, Idaho, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Montana, and Utah. So stay tuned for each of those separate videos in the coming weeks. In this episode, we're breaking down exactly how to apply for big game in Wyoming as a non-resident, specifically elk, mule deer, and pronghorn antelope. If you've ever logged into the Wyoming Game and Fish Department website and felt confused about the draw, preference points, or which licenses to apply for, you're not alone. Wyoming has one of the most talked about draw systems in the West, and it's also one of the most misunderstood. But once you understand how it works, it's one of the easiest to really navigate and one of the best opportunities for non-residents to hunt elk, mule deer, and antelope across huge tracts of public land. In this episode, we're going to cover everything you need to know before applying for the 2026 season. We're going to go through Wyoming's draw structure, explain the differences between regular and special licenses, and walk through the exact application process step by step. We're also going to look at key deadlines and preference point strategies, break down what the 90-10 split means for non-residents, and go over how to read your draw odds and maximize your chances. By the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly when, where, and how to apply for elk, mule deer, or antelope in Wyoming, and you're going to have a better plan to make sure your 2026 application is dialed in the right way. So let's get into it. When you start looking into Wyoming's big game application process, one of the first things you're going to notice is that the state does things a little differently than most. It's not a pure preference point system like Colorado, and it's not a random lottery like New Mexico. Wyoming uses a hybrid model that blends preference points and random chance, and that combination creates opportunity for both high point holders and brand new applicants. For non-residents, everything begins with understanding the two different license types in Wyoming's draw system, the regular draw and the special draw. Both of these draws pull from the same pool of tags. The only difference is that the special draw costs more. Hunters willing to pay the higher entry fee are placed in a smaller applicant pool, which can sometimes increase their odds of drawing a coveted tag, but it doesn't guarantee anything. The same preference point and random chance rules still apply. So here's how it works. When you apply for elk, deer, or antelope, Wyoming allocates 75% of non-resident tags through the preference point draw and the remaining 25% through a random draw. That means if you've built points over the years, you'll compete in the 75% pool against other hunters with similar totals. If you're brand new or sitting on fewer points, you're going to fall into the random pool, where every applicant, no matter how many points they have, has at least some chance of drawing. It's also important to know that Wyoming manages each species separately. You'll apply for elk, deer, and antelope individually, each with its own hunt areas, season dates, and tag quotas. But the overall draw structure, preference points plus random chance, is the same across all three species. The state's 90-10 resident to non-resident split also shapes how the draw works. In simple terms, Wyoming reserves 90% of its big game tags for residents and allocates the remaining 10% to non-residents. It may sound tight, but compared to other Western states, Wyoming still offers solid opportunity, especially for antelope and general deer or elk licenses. Another key thing to remember is how general versus limited quota works. General licenses are only available to residents over the counter, but non-residents must draw them through the preference point system. Those tags cover wide areas of the state and can provide excellent hunting if you're willing to do your homework. Limited quota licenses are specific to individual hunt areas with set tag numbers, season dates. Those tend to carry more demand and often require a lot of points to draw. The bottom line is this: understanding how these pieces fit together is critical to applying strategically. The regular and special draws give you options. The split between preference and random odds gives you hope, and the general versus limited structure determines where and how you're going to hunt. When you approach Wyoming's system with a plan, knowing which pool you're in, how many points you have, and what you can realistically draw, you take luck out of the driver's seat and replace it with strategy. If you plan to apply for Wyoming big game as a non-resident, timing here is everything. Wyoming's deadlines hit earlier than a lot of states, and missing even one means sitting out for an entire year. The system is straightforward once you understand it, but it also demands attention to detail and good organization. Let's start with elk, since that's the earliest and most popular non-resident draw. For the 2026 hunting season, the non-resident elk application period runs from early January through January 31st, 2026. Results typically post by the third week of May. That's a long gap between applying and finding out if you drew, but it gives you time to plan other hunts in the meantime. Wyoming also allows you to amend or withdraw your elk application before the close of the draw, which is a nice option if you change your mind or want to adjust your hunt choices before the deadline. Next comes deer and antelope, which share the same application period. For 2026, those applications open around May 1st and close around May 31st, give or take a couple of days. Results are usually available by the end of June for antelope and mid-July for deer. The earlier you apply, the better. It gives you time to double check your hunt area codes and make sure your payment information goes through. Late applications are not accepted, and Wyoming does not offer any grace period once the deadline passes. It's also worth noting that preference points are purchased separately. If you apply in January for elk but don't draw, you're going to need to log back in between July 1st and October 31st to buy your preference point for that year. The same applies for deer and antelope. You can only buy 1 point per species per year, and you must have or create a Wyoming Game and Fish account to do it. When it comes to license refunds, Wyoming has a few clear-cut rules. If you draw a tag and can't use it, you can request a refund under limited circumstances like illness, death in the family, or military deployment, but the state generally expects you to hunt the tag you drew. Another small but important detail, the Wyoming Game and Fish Department charges your credit card at the time you apply. That means the full license fee is due up front. If you don't draw, they refund the license cost minus a small processing fee. Always make sure your card has enough available balance and won't expire before the draw is processed. Failed payments are one of the top reasons applications get rejected. If you plan to apply for multiple species, make sure you set reminders early. At least set one for January for when elk applications are due, one for May when deer and antelope applications are coming due, and July through October to make sure you get your preference point purchased if you didn't get one through the draw. Every year, Wyoming posts updated deadlines, fees, and any rule changes on the Wyoming Game and Fish website under the Apply or Buy Now section. That page should be your first step each season before submitting an application. When you stay organized and build your calendar around those three core deadlines, the Wyoming draw system stops feeling complicated and it's going to start feeling more predictable. By planning early, confirming your hunt choices, and double checking payment details, you set yourself up for success long before draw results ever come out. If you've ever tried to make sense of Wyoming's preference point system, you already know it can look a little confusing from the outside. But once you understand the structure, it's actually one of the most straightforward and fair systems in the West. It rewards hunters who've been in the game for years, but it also keeps a door open for those just getting started. So here's how it works. Wyoming uses preference points for non-resident elk, deer, and antelope applications. Residents do not use points, only non-residents do. The purpose is to give returning hunters a better chance each year they apply without guaranteeing success. It's a balance between loyalty and luck. When you apply for a license, your preference points are automatically used in that draw. You can't save them or choose to skip using them. The system automatically looks at how many points each applicant has and ranks everyone from highest to lowest. 75% of the available non-resident tags go to those with the highest number of points in the preference point draw, while the remaining 25% are randomly awarded in the random draw, regardless of points. That means even first-time applicants still have a shot every single year. If you don't draw a tag, you can buy one preference point for that species between July 1st and October 31st. You can purchase points online through the Wyoming Game and Fish website, and you must have or create a Wyoming Game and Fish Department account to do it. Each species has its own point purchase, and you can only buy 1 point per species per year. The cost for non-residents is typically between $31 and $52, depending on the species, but that may adjust slightly each year. The system also includes an important detail that a lot of hunters overlook. You cannot buy a preference point if you successfully drew a tag for that species during that year. For example, if you draw a non-resident elk tag in 2026, you won't be eligible to purchase an elk point that same year. However, you will retain your existing points if you applied but were unsuccessful. It's also important to understand how preference points affect your odds. Wyoming publishes detailed draw reports every year showing exactly how many points it took to draw each hunt area in both the regular and special draws. This transparency lets you analyze trends and estimate your chances before you ever apply. But keep in mind, those numbers shift annually as demand fluctuates and more hunters build points. What looks like 6 points last year might take 7 points this year, or even more depending on the pressure or the winter. Some hunters try to chase these units, but that can backfire a lot of times. As more hunters build similar point totals, the cutoff creeps upward, a phenomenon called point creep. If your goal is simply to hunt Wyoming regularly, you're often better off targeting hunts that require fewer points, accepting the odds in the random pool, or mixing strategies between regular and special draws depending on your budget and long-term goals. For hunters just starting out, building points in Wyoming is still worth it. Unlike some states that take a decade or more to produce results, Wyoming's balanced system and random draw element mean you can realistically draw a quality hunt within a few years. Antelope and general deer tags in particular are attainable for newer hunters, while elk tends to be a little bit harder and take a little bit more patience. When you buy your points each year, think of it as keeping your foot in the door. It's your way of maintaining eligibility for better hunts down the road while staying in the game for the random tags each season. Whether you're chasing trophy bulls or looking for consistent opportunity, understanding and managing your Wyoming preference points is one of the smartest investments you can make as a non-resident hunter. When it comes to drawing a Wyoming big game tag as a non-resident, the key is understanding how to play the odds. Wyoming's system rewards consistency, but it also leaves enough room for calculated risk if you know how to use the numbers to your advantage. Let's start with the reality every non-resident faces, the 90-10 split. Under Wyoming law, 90% of all big game tags go to residents and only 10% are allocated to non-residents. That split applies across elk, mule deer, and antelope. It's meant to protect opportunity for residents, but it also means the non-resident competition is fierce, especially in trophy units. However, unlike states like Arizona or Utah, Wyoming's random draw keeps things interesting. Even if you don't have a pile of points, you still have a legitimate shot each year. The next big strategic decision is choosing between the regular draw and the special draw. The special draw is unique to Wyoming. It costs more, sometimes several $100s more, but it gives you access to the same tags as the regular draw, just in a smaller applicant pool. In theory, that higher cost improves your odds. In practice, it depends on the hunt. In high demand units where everybody is willing to pay extra, the odds in the special draw can actually be worse. But in mid-tier units that a lot of hunters overlook, the special draw can make a meaningful difference. The best way to decide is to study Wyoming's draw odds reports. Each year, the Game and Fish Department releases spreadsheets showing exactly how many people applied in each draw, how many tags were issued, and what point levels were successful. These are gold for planning. Before you apply, spend time comparing your point total to last year's successful range in both the regular and special categories. That simple research step helps you avoid wasting points in overly crowded units or missing easier tags that fit your goals. Another thing to factor in is general versus limited quota licenses. General tags for elk and deer give you flexibility and are often easier to draw. You're going to compete for them through the preference point system as a non-resident, but they can still be attainable within a few years or even in the random draw if you're lucky. Limited quota tags, on the other hand, are specific to smaller hunt areas with defined boundaries and typically require more points to draw. If your goal is consistent hunting opportunity, focus on the general tags or limited hunts that have decent odds. If you're chasing a once-in-a-lifetime bull or buck, commit to building points for the long haul. Now let's talk strategy. The smartest non-resident hunters in Wyoming combine short-term opportunity with long-term planning. For example, while building elk points, they'll apply for antelope or general deer tags to keep hunting the state and learning new country. This keeps them active. It adds experience and prevents burnout from years of waiting. Wyoming's mix of species makes this possible. Few states offer that kind of flexibility. It's also worth considering how you structure your hunt choices. Wyoming allows you to list up to 3 hunt area choices per species. The draw system works top-down, meaning your first choice is considered before moving on to your second. In most cases, 100% of tags are allocated to first choice applicants, so your second and third choices rarely come into play. But still, it's smart to fill them out, especially if you're targeting lower demand areas or just trying to hunt more often. A mistake a lot of hunters make is putting all their hope into a single high demand unit because it once produced a big bull or a buck. The truth is, most of those hunts are point traps that require 10 or more points and offer almost no random odds. If you're new or rebuilding from zero, look for hunts with any or type 1 designations that historically give out tags in the random pool. You can still find great hunts with realistic odds if you're willing to research and stay flexible. And finally, think about your budget and goals. The special draw might make sense one year if you're close to the point cutoff, but it might not the next if your odds barely improve for double the cost. Consistency usually beats gambling. Buying preference points every year and applying strategically is going to get you into the game faster than chasing unicorn tags. When you understand Wyoming's odds, think long term and apply strategically. You stop guessing and start playing the odds with purpose that way. Every year becomes part of a bigger plan, and instead of hoping for luck, you're stacking the odds in your favor year after year. Once you understand how Wyoming's draw system works, the actual application process is surprisingly simple. The key is paying attention to detail and taking your time. Small mistakes like using the wrong hunt code or having a payment issue can cost you your entire application for the year. So let's go step by step through the process so you know exactly what to expect when it's time to apply. The first thing you're going to do is go to the Wyoming Game and Fish Department's website, which is wgfd.yo.gov. Across the top menu, you're going to see an option labeled Apply or Buy. That's your main portal for everything related to applications, licenses, and preference points. Click that link and you're going to be taken to the login page for the state's online licensing system. If you've applied before, simply log in with your existing username and password. If you're new, you're going to need to create an account. The process is pretty straightforward. You will provide your full name, address, date of birth, email, and last 4 digits of your social security number. That last part is required for all applicants. Make sure your information matches exactly with what's on your driver's license, because any mismatch can cause verification issues later in the process. Once logged in, you're going to select Apply for Licenses and choose the species you want, elk, deer, or antelope. Each species is going to have its own menu of hunt types. Wyoming uses hunt area codes that correspond to specific zones across the state. Those codes are listed in the annual regulations and hunt area map published by the Game and Fish Department. It's worth studying that guide before you apply so you know exactly which area fits your goals and how many points it typically takes to draw. After you've selected your species and hunt area, you're going to choose your license type, regular or special, and then enter your hunt type code. For example, a Type 1 license usually refers to a full price tag valid for rifle or any legal weapon in a specific area. Once you've chosen your hunt and license type, you're going to fill out your first, second, and third choice areas. As mentioned earlier, almost all tags are awarded to first choice applicants, but it never hurts to use all 3 just in case something slips through the cracks in a low demand unit. Next comes payment. Wyoming requires full payment up front at the time of application. The system will prompt you for credit or debit information, and it's critical that your card has enough available balance and won't expire before the draw is processed. If a card declines or expires, your application is rejected automatically, no exceptions. For that reason, some hunters prefer using a dedicated card with a higher limit just for hunting applications. Once payment is complete, you're going to receive a confirmation email. Save it. That email proves your application was submitted successfully. If you don't receive it within an hour, log back into your Wyoming Game and Fish Department account and check your application history to confirm it's there. Technical issues, are probably rare, but they happen, so it's better safe than sorry. If you need to make changes or withdraw, Wyoming allows you to do so up until the application deadline for that species. After that date, everything locks. Once the draw runs, you can't make edits or get refunds unless you meet specific emergency criteria like military deployment or a verified medical condition. After the draw closes, you're going to play the waiting game. For elk, results usually come out in May. For antelope and deer, results post in late June and mid-July. You're going to get an email when the results are available, or you can log back into your account and check your status manually. If you draw, you're going to see your licenses listed under successful applications. If you didn't, you'll still be able to log back in between July and October to buy your preference points for that species. A quick word on archery stamps. If you draw a Type 1 rifle tag but plan to hunt during the early archery season, Wyoming also requires you to buy an archery license separately. It's a cool thing in Wyoming. You get to hunt archery all the way through rifle if you want, but you've got to buy that separate archery tag. It's inexpensive and can be purchased through the same portal under Apply or Buy. Without it, you can't legally bow hunt during the early season. The final step in the process is printing or downloading your license once it's issued. Wyoming offers both digital and physical options. You can print your tag from home or it can be mailed to you. Always verify your tag before heading out. If you get one of the big game draws, that's going to be mailed to you, right? Make sure that you verify the information, your hunt area, weapon type if needed, season dates are correct. Small errors can lead to big headaches in the field. When you follow these steps carefully, create your account, select the right area and license type, apply early, confirm your payment, save your documentation, the Wyoming application process becomes pretty smooth and predictable and stress-free. It's one of the cleanest systems in the West, and once you've done it once, you're going to be able to apply each year with confidence. Now that you know how Wyoming's draw works and how to submit your application, the real question is, how do you give yourself the best possible chance of drawing a tag? Success in this system isn't about luck. It's about stacking small advantages that compound year after year. The first key is research. Every season, the Wyoming Game and Fish Department releases detailed draw odds reports. Those tables show you how many applicants applied at which point level, how many drew, and what the cutoffs were. Study those numbers. Look for units where the draw odds are trending in your favor or where random tags were awarded in previous years. Odds are fluid. What looks impossible one year can open up the next after winter kill. Weather or access changes shift demand. Hunters who track those changes each spring are the ones who find windows of opportunity before everybody else notices. Second, be intentional about building points. Don't skip a year. Even if you know you can't hunt Wyoming next season, log in between July 1st and October 31st and buy your preference points. A lot of hunters miss the window or forget after summer scouting trips, and that mistake can cost them an entire year of progress. Treat points like currency. Each one increases your buying power in the future draws. Third, be flexible about where and how you hunt. If you only apply for a single high-demand trophy unit, you'll likely wait years. But if you're willing to hunt solid mid-tier areas with decent public access, your chances improve dramatically. So look at draw areas that consistently issue tags in both the preference and random pools. Some of those units don't get the same attention on forums, but they produce great hunts with far less pressure. Fourth, use the special draw strategically. It's not a silver bullet, but in certain hunt areas, it can shave years off the wait. Compare odds side by side for your point total in both the regular and the special categories. If the difference is meaningful, say a 20-point jump in odds, it might be worth the extra fee. But if the odds barely improve, save your money and apply regular. Fifth, pay attention to access and terrain before you apply. Some hunt areas look incredible on a map but have limited public land or require creative access planning through walk-in or hunter management areas. Wyoming provides excellent mapping tools on its website to preview public access layers. Don't draw a tag you can't realistically hunt. Sixth, build a multi-species strategy. Wyoming's greatest strength is variety. While you're building points for elk, apply for antelope or general deer to keep hunting. This keeps you familiar with the application system, adds experience in new areas, and builds confidence. A lot of hunters fill antelope tags while scouting elk country or learn mule deer behavior patterns in regions they'll hunt later on an elk tag. Seventh, understand how weather and winter kill can shift opportunity. A hard winter may reduce quotas or cause game and fish to adjust tag numbers in certain regions. Keep an eye on official updates before applying, especially for deer and antelope. If a region experiences significant loss, odds will skyrocket the next year as demand drops, giving savvy applicants a short-term edge. Eighth, consider group applications carefully. Wyoming allows up to 6 applicants per group for elk, deer, and antelope. The group's average preference point determines its place in the draw. That can help balance uneven totals between friends, but it can also hurt if one member has fewer points and drags the group's average down. Only apply as a group if everyone understands the math and shares the same goals. Finally, don't overlook the alternates and leftover options. Wyoming occasionally releases return and leftover tags later in the summer. Those are limited and competition is fierce, but it's another doorway into the state without waiting years. Bookmark the Wyoming Game and Fish Department's leftover license availability page and check it as soon as it updates. In the end, the hunters who consistently draw Wyoming tags aren't the ones just relying on luck. They're the ones paying attention, tracking odds, and planning several seasons ahead. When you treat the application process like part of your overall hunt strategy instead of a once-a-year formality, you're going to create opportunity instead of just waiting around for it. As we wrap up this episode on applying for big game in Wyoming, as a non-resident, it's time to pull everything together. You now understand the draw structure, key deadlines, preference point system, how the odds work, and exactly how to apply. But the difference between success and disappointment often comes down to a few small mistakes, ones you can avoid with a little preparation, and having your eye on the changes coming for 2026 so you're ahead of the curve. Applying to hunt elk, mule deer, or antelope in Wyoming as a non-resident is both a tactical process and a mindset. The system is designed to reward consistency, smart planning, and knowledge of the terrain. Every year you stay active by applying, buying your points, and scouting or researching units, you're building momentum. Use the framework you've learned in this episode to treat your application as the first phase of the hunt, not just a form you check off. The sooner you begin executing your plan, the better you're going to position yourself. Let's talk about some common mistakes that non-residents make with the application process in Wyoming. Even seasoned hunters slip up occasionally, so here are some of the most frequent errors. Missing the deadline. For example, non-resident elk applications close January 31st. If you miss that window, you're out for a full year. Using a card that fails payment. Wyoming requires full payment at application. If the card is declined or expired, the application is rejected. Applying for the wrong hunt code. During the application, you select a hunt code which defines your area and season and quota. Thinking your preference points guarantee a tag. Wyoming awards only 75% of non-residents tags via preference point draws. The remaining 25% go to the random draw. Neglecting to buy preference points when eligible. If you don't purchase your point in the July to October window, you're going to lose years of progress. Only targeting high demand trophy units. These often require many points and long waits. Skipping solid mid-tier units with better odds means missing realistic opportunities. Failing to check access and unit logistics. Drawing a tag is great, but if you can't access public land or it's mostly private, you're going to be frustrated in the field. Ignoring leftover license options. After the main draw, some tags roll over to a leftover or first come system. Keeping tabs on those can give you an extra doorway. Learning from those mistakes is going to put you ahead of a lot of applicants who simply apply and hope or wing it, right? As you prepare for 2026, your strategy also needs to keep some items on your radar. The non-resident elk draw deadline usually remains January 31st, but always double check for any rule tweaks or fee changes each winter. Watch for any shifts in unit boundaries, right? Or special license fee increases. Even slight changes can affect odds and strategy. Stay alert to updates in access maps or public land designations via the Wyoming Game and Fish Department Hunt Planner. Public access changes can open or close opportunities quickly. Make sure your application account details are correct. Your name, your social security, last four, your payment card. The system flags mismatches and you could lose your points or your application. If you begin with those changes in mind, you're going to be ready for 2026 as soon as the application portal opens. As always, if you're serious about taking this kind of information and knowledge deeper, that's exactly why I built Team Backbone. It's more than just a membership. It's a way to sharpen your edge with exclusive tools, strategies, and a tribe of hunters who refuse to quit. Inside, you're going to get 20% off site-wide on all Backbone Unlimited gear, a member-only t-shirt shipped to your door every month, not available anywhere else, full access to the digital content vault of guides, checklists, fitness programming, backcountry strategies, and mindset training, a private Facebook group with direct access to me, and a community of driven hunters who live relentless, direct call, text, or email access to me for personalized advice on training, hunting strategy, or just sharpening your edge, and automatic entry into monthly gear giveaways. This is built for the guys who train for the hunt, push themselves in the off-season, and want to be part of a tribe that makes them better. If you're ready for that kind of inner circle, then Team Backbone is waiting for you at backboneunlimited.com underneath our membership tab. Thanks for being here. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.